Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, January 16th, and we will call this meeting of the Sault Ste. Marie City Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Bospis-Rath.
Here.
Commissioner Habusta. Commissioner Marble.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Hubosta did notify us that he has some sick children, so anybody like to make a motion to excuse?
I will, Your Honor.
Been moved?
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? He is excused. If everybody that could stand, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We will move right into item B, which is proclamations and recognitions. Chief Bierling, if you'd like to come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity tonight to introduce our newest officer, Raymond Brooks. Mr. Brooks came to us in November of this past year, and he graduated from Lake State's Police Academy in June. And so he is going through our training program right now, and he's on track to be done in a couple months. And so we're excited to have him here and excited to officially introduce him to you all tonight. Mr. Brooks comes from Bay City and holds a bachelor's in science degree from Lake State and is a big outdoorsman, likes to hunt and fish, so he's in a great space, location for that. So we're excited about what he brings to the table and excited about his progress so far. And hopefully in a couple months, he'll be on solo patrol and you all will see him out serving our community. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Chief. Welcome, Officer Brooks. I don't know if you'd like to say anything or just come around and say hello to everybody.
I think I'll at least come and shake everybody's hands.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chief, and on behalf of the City Commission, certainly welcome to Officer Brooks, and thank you for the rest of the Sault Ste. Marie City Police Department who's here to support the new officer. We will move on into item C, which is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments on any of our regularly scheduled agenda items? So anybody that would like to make any comments on any of the items on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move into thank you. Seeing none, we'll move into item D, which is the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager Robin Troyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of January 3rd, 2023. Item 2 is acceptance of the Police and Fire Pension Board meeting minutes of November 16th, 2022. Item 3 is appointment of Mark Savoy to the Downtown Development Authority for a term to expire April 1, 2024. Item 4 is appointment of Amy Gates to the Downtown Development Authority for a term to expire on April 1, 2023. Item 5 is confirmation of mayor's appointment to the Local Development Finance Authority. Item 6 is consideration of a rental agreement with Chippewa County EDC for a motor grader. Item 7 is consideration of a resolution for continued maintenance and budget amendment with MDOT for wayfinding signs. Item 8 is consideration of a grant application, FEMA Assistance to Firefighter Grant. Item 9 is consideration of a grant application, FEMA Assistance to Firefighter Grant Regional Application. Item 10 is consideration and renewal of tax, legal representation services, and a budget amendment. Item 11 is Local Government Retirement Systems Annual Reports from Form 5572 for fiscal year ending 22. Item 12 is from the International 500 Project, authorization to sell liquor on city-owned property for the I-500 snowmobile race on Saturday, February 4th, 2023. And item 13 is approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Bet you were hoping for that one-item agenda. Yeah. Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Does anybody have any questions on any of the consent agenda items, or would you like any of them removed for individual consideration? Commissioner Rubenstein.
Just a quick comment, I guess, for clarification and in the interest of transparency on item number 5. You as mayor and us as commission members can request appointment to local boards as well, even though we're on the city commission, correct?
Yeah, the LDFA is a mayor's authority, and then they have to be affirmed by the commission. And I know it looks a little bit strange, and if you want to, I'll give you a little explanation on that. So we hired Marilyn Clark a few meetings ago to redesign, revamp our Smart Zone. The LDFA is the funding vehicle for the Smart Zone and has been set up incorrectly by the previous Smart Zone. So in an effort to expedite, I think, the process and be able to get the application to MEDC in for the renewal of the Smart Zone, we needed to have somebody with some background on the reasons behind why the Smart Zone failed and why we're going forward with a new Smart Zone. And there were only 2 people that have been involved all the way through the process, and it's been city manager and myself, and city manager is already there by virtue of that. So I will serve for a short time until we get our application in, which is due in a couple months. And we'll see how it goes from there on, but I certainly don't need any more committees to sit on, so. Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion, Commissioner Bauer?
So moved that we pass tonight's consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. All right, moving on into item E, special orders of business. City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first, we were going to have a presentation from the I-500 committee. Maybe not tonight. Long story short, the I-500 is coming up in a couple of weeks, first weekend in February. Buttons are on sale at a variety of different locations throughout the city. Hopefully the weather holds out and they get colder and they can make some ice. But we did have Dave Thomas scheduled to come here, but Dave was unable to make it at the last minute, so.
All right, moving on to
Thank you.
good update. E, special orders of business, number 2, City Manager Chapman.
All right, this one I know a lot more about. All right, so tonight for the commission, we have a PowerPoint and a presentation with Director Masterson, if you want to start heading on up here. We want to give you an update on where we're at with the wastewater treatment plant. Some of the newer commission members have recently been through the wastewater treatment plant. We kind of highlighted some of the issues that the plant's having. It's original. A lot of the components are original. They're past their useful life. And we're looking at revamping the wastewater treatment plant. So just kind of a little bit more background. The commission authorized in the last budget round some funding to contract with an engineering firm to come into the plant, look at the different components, make some recommendations, come up with some cost estimates. This is a critical key for some of the grants or loans that we may pursue in the future. So it's good to have this kind of information about where the plant's at, but we also need it for those funding applications. So we got a short presentation. We're going to run you through kind of high-level wastewater stuff, and then we'll get a little bit into the report. Each of you received a copy of the report tonight, so if you're having trouble sleeping at night, you can keep it by your bedstand and pick it up and read through it. We'll come back to the report at a later date, but we just want to get some of this stuff out in front of you. So I'm going to throw the PowerPoint up. Bonnie, if you want to share my screen. And as we go through, if any of the commissioners have any questions, please feel free to ask, and we would be more than happy to answer your questions. So eventually, my computer will catch up. All right. And without further ado, Director Masterson.
Thank you. So this PowerPoint is just kind of explaining this a little bit. This can get kind of confusing and drawn out, but why we did this was the current lending year has a ton of potential for up to 20 million in debt forgiveness. That would be great for us. As you know, the CSO and the SSO is part of our NPDES permit, so we have deadlines and things we need to accomplish each year. You've been to the wastewater treatment plant. You know that the collection system in the plant is getting old. We need to protect the public health and safety first and foremost. Everyone, I think, knows what a combined sewer on the dais here. They were designed to conduct rainwater runoff, domestic sewage, and industrial wastewater in the same pipe. This was normal when this system was designed, when it was built. As you know, that they are no longer acceptable, and municipalities are under pressure from regulatory agencies to achieve complete separation. Even with the city's best efforts over the last 30 years, we still have multiple combined sewers flowing to the wastewater treatment plant.
Yep. So just in short, we kind of got this picture here to show you what it should look like. So on the left side of the screen would be what the system would look like in a perfect world. Rainwater would go into its own system, goes back into the environment. Anything sanitary-wise or from buildings would go to the wastewater treatment plant to be treated and to go into the storm sewer. So like Director Masterson was describing, the right side of the screen is more of what our system is. So we have combined sewer systems that take in storm runoff and sanitary system flow. It all goes to the wastewater treatment plant to be treated and then goes out. And on a good day, it's not an issue. But when you start to combine the flows coming in from different buildings and a rain event, you start to back up into the sewer system. And it kind of creates backups in the houses, creates some unsanitary conditions throughout the city. So we have 3 identified CSOs that we're still addressing, 4 of them. One of them is Bingham and Water.
Bingham and
here.
Water and Mr. Boyle and the engineering department have been working very hard on that one.
Yep.
We have one on the east side, well, right in front of the wastewater treatment plant. A couple MDOT catch basins flow right into the sanitary sewer. There's one just east of the Portage Bridge. Again, MDOT catch basins. 129, yes, up on Ashman and 129, but that one is in the works for next year to be removed.
Yep. So like Masterson was saying, our NPDES permit, which is basically our operating permit for the wastewater treatment plant, establishes us to close out the CSOs or have the capacity to handle normal sanitary flow and a 100-year flood event.
24-hour, what was that, 24-hour, 25-year, 24-hour
Yeah.
rain event.
So essentially, if there's a big storm that comes in, we have the capacity without backing up homes or backing out into the street. So that's kind of our goal. We don't necessarily have to close them all out, but we have to make sure the system's able to handle all of that flow. So we've got some things that we're working on, like we said, Bingham and Water one is a big one that we're working on. But with the plant, so it's all a connected system, it collects here and goes to the wastewater treatment plant. There are modifications that we could do to the wastewater treatment plant to be able to accommodate some of that flow as well. So, take it back to you.
So a combined sewer, impacts of a combined sewer system, obviously sanitary sewer overflows. That's when the wastewater is coming out of the manhole or into the street. It happens, but We don't want it to happen, and there's a lot of paperwork involved when it does happen. Backups in the collection system, untreated sewage impacting the environment, partial bypass at the wastewater treatment plant. So when that happens, it is going through the primary treatment, and we are forced to bypass some of the flow past the secondary treatment where most of the removal is, and in turn, we are forced to turn the chlorine up, chlorinate it the best we can, and monitor it. And again, health and safety of residents. So we got another picture of
So I just
what
wanted to
it's,
show you.
what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, it's as much for the public as it is for the commission, but again, this is kind of an ideal system. All the rainwater gets picked up through its own separate system, goes into what would be the power canal or the St. Mary's here. All the sanitary and waste would get collected from its various sources, go to the wastewater treatment plant before being put back into the St. Mary's River. So it's just another kind of high level thing. So get into the next one here, Mr. Masterson.
So why are wastewater treatment plant upgrades needed? The last upgrade was 1986. We still have equipment from when it was built in the 50s that we are still using. NPDES compliance. Majority of our equipment is at the end of its useful life. Repair costs are starting to exceed replacement costs. There's better ways of treating wastewater available out there also. Our current practice is outdated, let's put it that way. We need to eliminate the need to bypass the secondary treatment during high flow conditions. We'll lower our energy costs, and we will protect the receiving waters better. No, we just have a nice picture of a nice wastewater treatment plant.
This is what we'd be shooting for in the future. So let me just go back. There we go.
So what's been done so far? We have removed numerous combined sewers over the last 30 years. We've done a lot of lift station improvements. The lift screws at the wastewater treatment plant are being replaced. We have updated our NPDES required asset management plan with a much better plan than what was handed in years ago. We hired DONAHUE in 2022 to evaluate the collection system and wastewater treatment plant. This is what you have here. And we have used the evaluation to submit an intent to apply for a Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. So the summary of the DONAHUE report is prioritize projects on a 5-year project plan, either 1 or 2. Priority 1 projects are included in our ITA for 2024 construction. They include collection system and work at the wastewater treatment plant consisting of rehab and renewal, preliminary treatment, and electrical and INC. Initial cost estimate of priority 1 project including CSO on Peck and Meridian, $38 million. Priority 2 projects were included in the ITA for future projects with a goal of construction by 2028. They included the collection system, disinfection, anaerobic digestion, biosolids handling, electrical, and INC. Total project cost if completed, as outlined in the DONAHUE report, would be just over $51 million. The report is focused on repairing and replacing our current process. If we choose to move forward, alternatives will be explored and costs have the potential of lowering.
So it's kind of on the high end, but like Mr. Masson was trying to highlight, the plan itself, a lot of it's still original, the processes haven't changed, some of the equipment hasn't even changed. So in order to meet, our regulatory requirements to ensure that what we're treating is safe to go back into the environment, as well as handle any of these overflow conditions that do happen, we've gotta make some upgrades to the plant. And they're not cheap. Nothing at the wastewater treatment plant is cheap. I mean, if you bought a pack of pens from a wastewater treatment plant provider, they're probably $2,000 or so. So we are looking at a lot of big improvements. And like Mr. Masterson said earlier, excuse me, our intent is to try to put ourselves in a position to be able to take advantage of some of the funding at the state level. So the state, the state has a lot of funding that's came down to the federal government. They've recognized the need for infrastructure, and we want to make sure we're positioning ourselves for that funding, especially since there are some qualifications that we meet for a large amount of forgiveness. So we have the ability to put in some funding requests and possibly have almost half of this project kind of forgiven by the state. Our debt load right now has a good amount of CSO work from, last 10, 15 years. We've been on that kick since early 90s and trying to close the CSOs. Those are gonna start to fall off here in the near future. So as they begin to fall off, we would move to possibly take on more in connection with some of this funding from the state to be able to make the upgrades to the plant that are necessary. So moving forward,
So what we need to do is we need to hire a firm to complete a project plan for upgrades that would be due by May 1, 2023. It would also be smart of us to have some preliminary engineering completed to help with the tight deadline of the CWSRF. And we just need to keep our fingers crossed that the city scores well and we get a large portion of our loan as a grant. If we do not receive a large portion as a grant, we will have to scale back our project to a dollar amount we can afford. You can always take away, you cannot add to on the CWSRF. So if we got a large portion of it as a grant, we couldn't say, well, we want $10 million more. We can always scale it back. So.
yep. So moving forward, we'll be bringing a contract to the commission, possibly for an engineering firm to assist us with the application for funding moving forward. I would review the report that's given to you, and if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of us, and we'll be happy to ask or answer them. But this will kind of be a focus of ours for the next couple of years, really. I mean, the plant, like I said, you've all been through the plant. The plant definitely needs some upgrades and some maintenance work done to it. We have done a lot of what we could do. Just as an example, some of the bearings are going bad in the RBCs, and just to replace some of those alone is $50,000.
Yes, we ordered 12 bearings and just shy of 50,000. Yes.
So we're kind of looking at some of these lower maintenance items that have higher price tags. Is there a better way of treating the process or treating the flow that's coming in to where we have lower maintenance costs in the future as well? Otherwise, we're gonna nickel and dime ourselves, and we're gonna get into kind of a bad situation in the future.
And you're gonna see some things in this where it shows, I think there's a diagram of building another set of RBCs and 2 more clarifiers. And that's if we don't do anything out in the collection system. So, but our end goal is to get that cleared, so if we build a structure like that, it's gonna sit there empty and be useless to us. So we need to be smart moving forward and come up with the best process that we can for the best bang for our buck.
And we do, just to kind of reiterate a little bit more too, I mean, we have bypass events at the plant. We probably average,
3 to 5 a year usually, the last couple of years.
Yep. kind of depends on the time of year, if the ground is still frozen. Spring thaws and spring rains combined, like this past year, they hurt us. We bypassed quite a bit. When we do bypass, we have a staff member that's down at the plant, and I think last year, what were they down there, 4 days or so do we bypass?
Yeah, somebody has to be on site raking and making sure everything's flowing properly. I try my best. if I know the flow is coming up, I'll keep an eye on the screws and the amount coming in, and I will shut a screw off until I can't anymore. So I will hold out the bypass as long as I can. And it's worked a few times this past year. We only ran 2 screws. We were able to maintain, and we didn't have to bypass where normally, or in the past, the gate would have went down and they would have been bypassing. So I try not to bypass at all, but obviously that's impossible sometimes. So
Yep. So we just kind of want to throw the beginning pieces of the information at the commission, just so you can kind of digest it a little bit. And like I said, we'll be discussing this report as we move forward, because there'll be other pieces that we'll be bringing to the commission that's kind of tied to this report. So, anybody have any questions for now?
What type of a process are you gonna go through for, is it an engineering firm that you're gonna hire for,
Correct. And
I think in the beginning when we talked about Donahue, we figured it probably would not be the same firm. It would be a
we would still bid.
process.
We would bid that one
yes,
out.
and
Yes.
and the SRF likes to do quality-based engineering, so we would have to specify what we're looking for and go that route.
Anybody have any questions? Certainly Commissioner Miller.
Are we going to revisit this and talk about it another time? Because
Yep.
we just got this tonight. so
Yeah,
I-
yeah.
I may have a bunch of questions for you, I
Yeah.
might not, but we need to read this first.
Yes, yep.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free to call me, stop down there and see me. I'm there Monday through Friday. I don't leave very often, so.
Certainly an ambitious project, but Donahue is going to present several options, correct? Are they, I thought that part of that study
As
was,
part of the SRF, you have to do alternatives, which
Right.
one alternative will be do nothing. Another alternative will be tear the building down, tear the place down and build a new one. Then whatever they come up with in the middle. So yes, there will be alternatives to everything.
But we just wanted to give you guys a baseline of where the plant is at right now, too.
And if I can say again, we asked in our ITA for that much, knowing we can't add to it later. It doesn't mean we're trying to. I mean, it'd be great if we could, but it all depends on what we can afford as a city. And so I just want you to know that. Don't take the 38 million or the 51 million and, oh my goodness, we had to ask for that in case we got a large grant.
any other questions? All right, thank you, Director Masterson.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Moving on into G, business items, number 1, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first for commission consideration is a request to approve the city's 5-year master recreation plan and authorize the submission to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So just kind of as a summary, we contracted this out a few months ago. There was a process that was required by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. There was some community engagement sessions. The commission had a public hearing on this last meeting. We took it to the Parks and Rec Board. We took it to the Plan Commission. Both groups recommended approval of it. Tonight, we have the final draft for your consideration. Included in it is an asset list with some goals for the future. We did include some of our potential projects for the future. The Parks and Rec Master Plan is kind of a key to unlocking certain grant funding sources through the MDR. So there's a lot of things in there, such as trails and pathways and things of that item, so that we're eligible to seek funding for them too. So if there's any questions, we have to entertain them. Otherwise, we look for motion to approve the 5-year Master Rec Plan.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioner Miller.
Where it says budget source, it says several budgets are utilized to make, like what? So budgets like, such as,
So the master park plan has kind of a CIP list, and that's a comment referencing any kind of future budgeting. So some things could come from the Parks and Rec budget, some things could come from a grant, some things could come from streets department, or the case may be. So it's just kind of a blanket kind of thing.
Thank you.
The original budget for this project was about $20,000, which we had budgeted for.
Any other questions, comments? Been kind of a long process, and certainly thank you to the consultants, McKenna, and all of the people that participated in all of the public forums. It was fun to see people coming alive and talking about what they want to see in the cities of St. Marie. So, Commissioner Bospas-Rath, would you like to make the motion?
Sure. Motion to approve the five-year master recreation plan to submit to the MDNR.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Under G, business items, number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to purchase 4 turnout gear from McQueen Emergency Equipment. The fire department put out an RFP and went through them. Their analysis came up with McQueen being the best for the department. This was an unbudgeted expense. These 4 turnout gears will be for the new firefighters that we have hired. It was kind of a budget oversight last year because we were kind of in flux between directors, or chiefs, excuse me. So we look for a motion to award the bid to McQueen Emergency Equipment for the cost of $11,968, and a motion to amend the budget for fire capital equipment with an increase of $12,000 coming from the general fund.
Thank you, City Manager. No demos from the chief? No? Any questions for City Manager or Chief? Commissioner Miller?
so it says 5 bids were submitted, and you went with McQueen. Were they the lowest bid or the best for your department?
Chief Miller, you want to come up here real quick? We did receive 5 bids, and normally we have the bids in there, but we didn't include it this time on accident. They're not the lowest bid, they're the second lowest to the bid.
They are the middle bid,
They're the
and
middle
they're $128 off from the low bid. But the one we chose is, we're familiar with them. They have been good to our department in the past. And they're one of 2 vendors that actually took the time to come and talk to us and educate us on the product. So that scored a little higher, along with the cost involved with it. But wide
So
range of pricing.
You're talking about $128?
$128
$128,
difference
okay, thank you. Thanks,
You're
Chief.
I'm pretty tight.
That answers my question. That answers my question.
Yeah.
I just wondered if they were low or where they were in the bidding process.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Miller, there's
I'll do them.
2 motions there, if you'd like to make
Sure.
the motion.
Motion to award the bid to McQueen Emergency Equipment for the purchase of 4 sets of personal protective structural firefighting gear at a cost of $11,968.96.
Support.
So we save $128.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Your Honor. Motion to amend the budget for fire capital equipment with an increase of $12,000 to come from the general fund.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Item G, business items, number 3, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to apply for a grant through the State Land Bank Authority for structural stability,
Something or other.
help me out here. Stabilization.
Hit him with your gavel.
Oh, goodness. For structural stabilizing of 538 and 540 Ashburn Street in the downtown. That's the building next to the theater down there. So State Land Bank Authority has a grant out. They are taking applications for demolition or stabilization activities. Community Development and DDA and I are recommending we apply for stabilization of this building. We've worked with the property owner who recently purchased the property probably about a month or so ago. We're gonna apply for the full $200,000. The State Land Bank Authority has $200,000 set up for each geographic county in the state of Michigan. Not necessarily the county unit of government, but geographic county. So there's $200,000 on the table for us. With the grant, there is a portion to cover administrative costs. So we're applying for the full $200,000. The work that we're expecting would be about $186,000. We are gonna look to redo the roof, some windows, the fire escape in the back, and some other work that we may be able to fit in the budget to kind of keep the weather out and keep it from further deteriorating. So we, how we got here with 538 and 540 Ashman Street, staff and I had a meeting. We looked for different opportunities. This one kind of rose to the top. We originally worked with the property owner who just recently sold it. They weren't interested in it, but they turned over hands, and the new property owner is very interested in it. So there is a long-term plan with the new property owner to rehabilitate the structure. The grant that is awarded will actually go on the property as a lien, which can be removed by the city requesting it once the work is done, so that the state's not losing $200,000. We think it's a great opportunity, and we would look for a motion to support the grant application.
Thank you, City Manager. And I know people are probably thinking there are some other buildings around town that could use it, but the requirement of this grant is that the municipality own the property or enter into a written agreement with the property owner to have the work done. And some of the other properties that we would like to see demoed would not have the same luck.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Rubenstein, would you like to make the motion?
Motion to authorize the city manager to submit a building stabilization grant for 538 and 540 Ashman Street to the State Land Bank Authority.
Support.
Has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Item number 4, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to approve a traffic control order as drafted by the engineering department. The TCO in general will prevent heavy truck traffic through certain areas of the city. Included in your agenda item is a map that kind of highlights which routes are designated as all season and which ones are seasonally restricted. With this TCO, there's also, we're rescinding a few older TCOs, TCO 6-567 1-22-62 and T-03-09. So this one is actually a kind of a bigger cleanup project than anything else. That's why there's so many other TCOs that are being rescinded. But essentially, the truck route that's provided will kind of highlight where heavy truck traffic can go. One of the issues that we ran into that kind of spurred this was the salt trucks driving down West Portage, kind of in the tourist district. We did contact the weight officer with the state troop, with Michigan State Police, and because we didn't have any signage up, the restriction was not enforced. And because we didn't have a TCO, we couldn't put the signs up. So we're gonna put the TCOs in place to put the signs up to kind of enforce that area with the state troopers. So, so we look for a motion to approve the TCO as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions or comments for the City Manager? Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, it's something I just don't know. When you put the load restrictions in place in the Michigan State Police, if they stop someone and give them a ticket, where's that money go?
State coffers.
We don't see any of it, like we don't see any of the cash.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. Sometimes we get a pinch, sometimes we don't. I don't think we do with that one.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I thought that West Portage Avenue with the re-paving was going to be a Class A road.
So it was supposed to, but what we found when we started grading down West Portage all the way going up to Easter Day, the substructure wasn't strong enough to accommodate an all-season or an all-season route classification, Class A. So the as-builts that we had when we were working on West Portage showed a sufficient enough base to where we could mill and overlay it and put on the new asphalt top and it would be good. But when we started grinding down West Portage, we came across the substructure really quick. So the road was not originally designed as thick as what the as-builts were. So without that strong substructure behind it, we couldn't open it up to all seasons heavy truck traffic. So how that happened, we don't necessarily know, but based on what we had with the as-builts when we first started looking at it, it should have worked out, but as soon as they started grading or started grinding it down, they got right into the substructure right off the bat.
We're gonna have a little problem with some of the assurances we made.
Well, and it was either they can, yeah, and we've got the
Yeah.
seasonal permits that they'll be able to happen, but the substructure just was not there like it was supposed to be as built showed.
Was that an MDOT issue, or was that us as a city issue?
It's us.
Local? Commissioner Bauer?
I would presume, and just verifying, that under exemptions, that refrigerated vans would also include like full-blown refrigerated trucks and not just vans.
Why don't you start heading up here, Dave? So from what I recall in discussing it with staff, refrigerated vans and like the big refrigerator distributor trucks are two different types of vehicles.
Right.
So refrigerator vans are more,
They're, well, okay, so you can get, you know, like a beer truck is a big one, but then beer trucks also come in with tractor trailers, right? So we made it for 30,000 pounds, so most of those would probably be okay. What we're really after is the larger lead trucks, you know, the construction trucks that carry gravel and stuff, so.
Right, but what about, what about distribution trucks from places like, Reinhardt, Cisco, GFS, because we have, a lot of restaurants and such.
Yeah, we
along there.
took that into account. It's similar, so they should be able to access, be able to access that within this TCO, so.
Thank
We're
you.
just, like I said, we're just looking for the big construction lead trucks that are gonna haul gravel and stuff,
Gotcha.
or salt, or whatever.
Okay. Commissioner Miller?
So trucks like Marquette's, the beer trucks like Marquette's use, they'd be all right? They'd be kind of,
Right.
they're under I wouldn't want to see any undue problems with their business.
I can't say for sure, I don't know how much they weigh, but it just restricts through truck traffic. So if there's a direct delivery, it's not gonna be on a truck, that's fine. It's just like West Portage, when you
Mike, please.
go around. It would just restrict through truck traffic, so if it's the most direct route off of a truck route, there's no issue.
so deliveries would be fine. It's the people that are getting the shortest way to
Making
I-75.
shortcuts.
Thank you.
And then we do have any other situation that may come up, because this does come up every spring. We do have permits that we issue for heavy loads to come into the city. We've expanded that a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, to even include a seasonal permit for such activities, so if they're kind of repetitive nature. Typically what was done in the past was you should have been pulling a permit every trip into the city. And to kind of accommodate some of these more frequent deliveries, we did create a yearly or seasonal, I call it seasonal just because it's a season thing, but we do have a season permit that people can pull and be able to facilitate it that way too.
So it's the base that was not adequate then? How do we determine that from a mill and resurface?
Oh, yeah, so, okay, so we went out.
And not know that prior to going into the project?
Yeah, so we went out there and we're gonna mill, 2.5 inches off. And we got into it and we had even milled an inch off in lots of spots and we were already into the gravel base. So, if you remember, like on West Portage out in front of the tourist area, you know, it was gravel. We shouldn't even had gravel. We should have just had an asphalt base through there. So we had to go back and dig out some of them areas and put some more asphalt in there before we repaved it so we can make it at least, you know, so we had at least 2.5 inches out there, but we still didn't end up getting what we wanted through most of that roadway.
And there was no way to put more asphalt on because we're working with the same curb structure and,
Well, we did. We put some more on there, because we always like to make the asphalt a little bit higher than the curb line, so we're probably, you know, 3/4 to an inch on most of it out there. But, you know, we still couldn't, for the most part of the road, you know, we didn't feel comfortable enough that it had enough structure in it to go to all seasons, so.
so does this restrict then the Holiday gas station and Marquette's deliveries?
The Holiday gas station, it doesn't restrict them, no.
But it'll require
But-
permits.
It does have to pull the permits,
In
in,
the
yes.
seasonal, yep. But we have that issue other places in town too, with the tanker trucks, the gas in the spring, so.
All right. Any other questions for city manager or city engineer? But so is, I guess, so there was no way to make it a Class A road then from
No, because we
when we got
had,
into it?
we had to do the base work.
Yeah, we would've had to go, it would've had to be more of a reconstructive work than the rehab work that we were doing out there. I mean, we tried to do as much as we could to make sure that it's gonna, you know, last for a good period of time here, but there was no way we could've got it, so we knew that it was an all-season Class A road.
Commissioner Miller?
So if I heard you correctly, then for Marquette's to supply Holiday gas station with things, they have to pull permit? They have to pull permits? That
Yeah,
local-
right now, so it's from Easter Day, Easter Day down to Ridge Street is where the truck routes go, so. on
It's just
West
when the
Portage.
frost laws are in effect,
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
right? They have to pull a permit just when the frost laws are in effect.
just the
since-
frost laws, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime else, they're fine.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
I just wasn't clear on that.
Thank you very much. Do we have Commissioner Rubenstein, would you like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the attached TCO as presented.
Support.
It has been moved and supported that we approve the attached TCO. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Item G, business items, number 5. City Manager Chapman.
Oh, yeah. Per the Open Meetings Act, I'm requesting a closed session with the commission to discuss the negotiation possible settlement strategies related to a state of Michigan tax tribunal case with the Chippewa County Family Project. So we look for a motion to approve as presented.
And we will not be coming back into session?
Correct.
At the end
Yeah,
of
there was a little
the,
note there that says we may,
okay.
but we're not. No, I have no anticipation.
All right, Commissioner Marble, would you like to make the motion?
Motion to enter into closed session in order to discuss the trial and/or settlement strategies as pertaining to the State of Michigan Tax Tribune case with Chippewa County Family Project in ordinance with Section 8E of State of Michigan Opening Meetings Act.
Support.
It has been moved and supported that we enter into closed session at the end of this meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We will move into closed session at the end of our regularly scheduled meeting. Moving on to City Manager announcements and updates.
I don't have much. I will have kind of an after the year wrap up for you guys at the next meeting. So that's about it.
Any questions for City Manager? All right, we'll move into item I, which is matters presented by the public. Or is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments at this time? Any matters presented by the public? Seeing none, we'll move into item J, matters presented by the City Commission. Anybody on the City Commission have any announcement? Commissioner Miller?
I don't want to put
Making
anybody
up
on.
for last time.
What's that?
I said you're making up for lost time tonight.
Are you referring to when I was sick and I missed a couple of meetings? Is that what you're referring to? Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Give me that gavel again. I'm concerned about the Puller Stadium. I don't want to put anybody on the spot tonight, and I know we're supposed to get an update on that concession stand stuff, but the text we got the other day about the chiller system now not working, weak ice and all that, I mean, it seems like the building's really having a lot of problems, and we don't have to talk about it tonight. Maybe put it on the, I should have just called Robin and had it put on the agenda for the next meeting, whatever, but like I said, I don't want to put, Brian, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we'd like an update on what's going on with the concession stand, and if you've found out anything about the chiller system, whatever. I've been in contact with a couple of people that work with the Sioux Eagles organization. They're not aware of anything about weak ice. They told me they didn't know anything about it, so, I mean, I don't know if that's maybe something you haven't discussed with them, or...
I don't know how they couldn't be aware of it when in certain spots it was almost down to the cement. So we can give you guys an update in the next meeting if you want.
On the chiller and on the concession stand stuff?
Chiller and the concession and
Right.
maybe just the building in general. Because there's a lot of concerns that we have with the Polar, just like the,
Right. Well, like I said to you before, in private, we take the Sioux Eagles out of the equation, out of the formula, whatever. That's our building. That's our beautiful building that's been there for all those years, and it seems like it's deteriorating. I mean, first you don't have a concession stand, now the ice is getting, you might have to tear up the cement it's at. I mean, it's getting pretty bad. And I realize it's, even though it's a public service for our residents, and it's kind of a drain on our money. We lose money on it, I know that. We've been losing money on it for years and years and years, but we can't let it deteriorate anymore. I mean, you can't let it, so if you can just, like I said, I don't put you on the spot tonight, but if you could give us an update on what's going on, and I certainly would like to see that concession stand get up to 100%, so, I mean, we're leasing it out to an organization, or organizations down there that can't use it, so it's a little ridiculous. Thanks. Thanks for letting me vent, Your Honor.
Sure, thanks, Commissioner. Also, I'd just like to note, we don't lose money on any facility. It's city investment on facilities, similar to Sherman Park. And
Right,
to
but I meant,
the
I know it's a
park, so
drain on, it's
All
a drain.
all the public facilities are, if you want to term them as a drain, but they're an investment in the community, so. Any other, sure, Commissioner Boss's wrath.
Well, since it is Martin Luther King Jr., I figured I would say a quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Any other questions or comments, or Commissioner Bauer?
Free at last? Not even, because we're gonna be in closed session, not even that. But I move to adjourn, Your Honor.
Support.
Been moved and supported, we adjourn this meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is